welcome to Improbable Things. I'm J. Grace Pennington, and this is my podcast where I share 6 improbable thoughts before breakfast, which consists of 6 thoughts about reading, writing, or storytelling in general. And it's been quite a long time since I did this, but I think I remember how to do it, so let's get started. So first, I want to say I am glad to be back. I was gone for quite a lot longer than I was expecting. And there are a few reasons for that. First of all, if you'll recall, I stopped a couple of weeks before my due date with my baby, and she ended up being quite a bit late, and so that took longer than I expected. And then it took, for a while, I was not, even though I had kind of gotten back into some, writing things and even some big projects, I wasn't able to do this particular thing for a very specific reason, and that is because the way that I was getting up early and being able to do my quiet time and work on some things is that I would get up, take the baby, because we were co-sleeping, take her with me out to the living room, feed her, put her in her bassinet on the couch next to me with white noise from my phone, and that was how I would get her to take this early morning nap, and I could do my Bible, and I could do some writing or whatever I needed to do. Well, I have to record the podcast on my phone, and she had to use it for the white noise so that she could sleep. So practically, I wasn't able to work on it. But for the past week or so, she's been back. She's been actually in her own crib, which seems just way too big for me. I'm slightly sad about it. She's just already growing up so much. But anyway, I don't think that I announced, for anyone that doesn't know, I had a little girl. Her name is Evangeline, but we call her Eva, and she's definitely lots of work. And she fights sleep a lot. So takes a lot of time just trying to get her to sleep, but she's so sweet and smiley and chubby, and we all love her. The other girls are obsessed with her. Like, she's just precious. We all love her so much. So I am finally getting back into some writing things, but I also, it does look different than it did before. I'm not putting as much into it in this season still because she is taking so much energy. And to me, that's part of my sort of how to do it all thing has always been that doesn't mean that you're going to do everything all the time. And this is a season where I still have needed to step back from some of the things that I was doing before she was born, and that's fine. And for a while, one of those things was this podcast, and still I'm not doing as much as I was before, but I have gotten back into a lot of writing things, which I'll explain more about in a moment. But in the meantime, I'm happy to be back with y'all doing this podcast. Number 2, I wanted to talk a little bit about firmament intoxication, because I have been able to make a lot of progress on that despite all that's been going on. It's been out on Kindle Vella for almost a month, which means I'm about ready to get it out on ebook and paperback, because you have to wait 30 days. So it's actually in just about a week. It will have been 30 days since it's been on Vella, and then I'll be able to get it, the real release going. And so I have been going over the all the things from my editor and just kind of making, a last fine-tooth comb sweep of it, looking for typos and things like that. And I've already talked to my formatter about working on it sometime in the next couple weeks of next month. So I don't know the exact date, and I honestly may not even set a firm date, but it will be sometime, Lord willing, in the first half of November, because I want to get it out before Black Friday. So that's very exciting. I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I just think everyone's really going to enjoy it. I'm really looking forward to hearing what people have to say. Number 3, my other big project, which actually has been very difficult for me, is I was asked to participate in another one of the Very Bookish holiday story collections, which, if you haven't been around for the other ones I've worked on, some friends and fellow writers have put together these collections of novellas, and each novella in the collection they're all written by different people, and they're each based on a work of classic literature which the main character loves and then is reflected in their life in some way. And so I did an Anne of Green Gables inspired story for the Christmas collection several years ago. I did a Great Expectations inspired story for the Thanksgiving one a few years back. And there's been a couple more that I wasn't able to participate in. And then this is the last one, and it'll be a Valentine's Day collection. And so I did a story called Southeaster Lodge, which is based on Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. And it was very difficult for me to write. Like, I felt like I really loved the idea, and then I had a very easy time coming up with the outline. But then with the actual writing, I think honestly a huge part of it is just that my energy is directed elsewhere right now, and I just had a really hard time pulling it together. And somehow my goal was to write it during the month of September. Somehow I actually did manage it in 6 weeks. Instead of that, I managed to finish it in the middle of October. But it was just very difficult. Like, every time I sat down to write was a struggle, and most days I was only writing for 10 minutes. Like, I was so sort of drained, and my brain was so not in a creative space that the only way I could make myself write was literally to set a timer for 10 minutes and just sit down and be like, it's just 10 minutes. I could do it for 10 minutes. And there were a few places where it sort of did pick up and I was able to get into the story, but it just was a struggle, and it was a test for me of my long-stated belief that writer's block does not exist, because if it ever did, this would have been it. Like, I didn't care for the story the whole time I was writing it, and just could not get my brain in that space. But I still made it, and I did send it off to a beta reader who I was sure was going to say, like, this is garbage. But she actually really enjoyed it and did have a few helpful suggestions that I'm going to work on implementing this next week. But overall, really liked it. And so I guess it's not quite as bad, hopefully, as I was thinking. And often when I do go back over something, it seems better than it did originally. So I'm hoping that will happen when I start revisions in a few days here. But anyway, so that'll be released early next year. Valentine's Day collection. I'm sure I'll talk more about it, but be on the lookout for that. So number 4, we did end up starting school like a few weeks ago, a couple months, I don't remember exactly, but officially starting school once the baby was really reliably taking a morning nap. And so we went back, I don't know if anyone remembers, I had talked about how I had tried to start teaching Violet, my oldest, who's now 5, how to read last year, but it just was a real struggle. And she kept getting frustrated, and so we just put it on pause for a while, and then I decided to go back to the beginning of the book and try again this year. And it was such a good decision. Like, she is picking it up so much more easily now. Like, it just is coming more naturally and smoothly to her. And so we've really been enjoying that, and she is just now starting to, like, read words she sees, like, around the house or even while we're driving. And that is so much fun. Like, yesterday, she was in the hallway where we have a couple of little narrow shelves with all of our CDs and DVDs. And she stopped and pointed at one of the DVDs and said, "Does that say Big?" And it was the Tom Hanks movie Big. So I said, "Yes, it does say Big. Good job. Did you read that?" And she goes, "Yes." And then she had all these thoughts about it. And she's like, "Why is it called Big? That is such a short name for a movie. I've never heard of a movie called that. Can I watch it?" And I was like, "No, you cannot watch it." But I was just so proud of her. Like, she's really catching on to it. And I think she's so close to, like, starting to be able to read some books on her own, you know, and that's going to be such a whole new world for her that it's just so much fun to get to be on this journey. So number 5, my currently reading, right now I'm reading The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. And I know I picked it up years and years ago at, I think, a thrift store and just had never gotten around to it, but I don't remember what made me want to read it. I think I had just heard that it was a bestseller, or heard someone talk about. I don't even remember. It was so long ago. But it was next on my shelf. So I started reading it. And I really am enjoying it. It's very unusual, but very weirdly compelling. I think I'm 2/3 of the way through it, and I just started it the day before yesterday. So I am really pulled into it, and I'll have to talk more about it when I'm done, because I don't even know quite yet what I think about it. It's very unusual, and I don't feel like the main character is, in a way, all that compelling. Like, it's hard because he's from what I can understand from reading it, is severely autistic or something along those lines. And so even though you feel for him, it's hard to connect with him, but it also just feels very authentic. I'm going to look into this more later, but I think just from glancing at some stuff about the author, I believe he worked with autistic children for a long time, and so I'm sure that's why it feels very real. And it's just, it's not your normal story structure, and the chapters aren't numbered normally. They're each numbered with prime numbers, and so anyway, it's just all kinds of quirky, interesting things like that. And I don't know, it's sad and compelling so far. We'll see what I think when I'm finished with it. So number 6, I actually hear my baby waking up, so I won't be able to linger on this one for too long, but I did want to talk just a little bit about valuing reading and how that happens, because that's something that came up recently. My girls and I visited some family, and my sister-in-law, who's expecting her first any day now, was asking my mom, like, if my mom thinks that just valuing reading is something that our parents gave us, or something that's like natural to each person. And in a sense, we were able to definitely say it is just sort of inborn and can't be taught, because, like, while I really love reading, there's some of my other siblings that really do, and there's some that almost never read at all and just never, got into reading. So definitely, I think there is an element where you're not going to be like turned into a reader if it's not in you. But I do think there is, it's just one of those, like, in the nature versus nurture discussions, I don't think there's ever really a cut and dried black and white answer, because I do also think just the amount to which you value reading can really be influenced, because I definitely do think, even though I was always going to be a reader, I loved reading as long as I can remember. I don't remember a time I couldn't read and wasn't reading books. I still grew up in an atmosphere where reading and books were highly valued, and I think that nurtured that spark even more. Like, I do think there are some ways where it would have been more limited if I had grown up in a family where we weren't reading. But my mom, like, we had so many books. My mom was always reading aloud to us when we were growing up. And, we just, were always buying books, shelves full of books. Reading was very encouraged. And it was just something that I think we were taught to value. And I just think it's not, like I said, there's a truth to both. Like, I don't think you're going to turn someone who's naturally not a reader into a voracious reader, but I think you still will make someone that's not a natural reader someone who finds value in reading and in books. And in the same way, someone that even might naturally be like a big reader, you can make them even more like honed in the books, the kinds of books they value, and the reason they value reading, and